Hey, Composite Gloves here, and I am wearing a hat. Today, this is the first video in the Learn Iris 2. In this series, I'm going to be teaching you about Iris 2, sound design with Iris 2, what Iris 2 does, Iris 2 in action. Pretty much, my goal is to make you an Iris 2 guru. I expect you to have a little bit of prior knowledge. I cover what I expect you to know in the Sound and Synth Basics course. So go check that out. And I'll frequently reference videos of things I've already covered so I can save the time of covering them in this series because they're pretty standard stuff. Iris 2 is a spectral synthesis engine. So you may not, I could see myself using this not for synthesis, but for sample processing in a very unusual way. Let me give you an example of what I mean. And we're going to be talking about all this stuff in detail later, but just sort of give you a rundown of why Iris 2 is cool, because it kind of gets criticized because there's a lot of stuff it doesn't do great, but what it was designed to do, it does pretty well. I think there's a lot of room for development still, but let's just say that, okay, we're going to find an accordion sample. Like, okay, cool. And the idea is you have a spectrum here and you can take any piece of recorded audio and then you can filter it in a very intuitive manner. So in this case, we can like isolate harmonics, right? So now what was that sound is now just that. And I'm playing quite high on the keyboard. So you see, we're like, wow, that's an interesting result. And we can actually click again and it will detect a harmonic series, all pertinent, what it thinks are pertinent harmonics using math. I'm not sure what kind of algorithm they have, but so maybe if you want to get a really weird sound, I've done a lot of experimenting and you can get a lot of really terrible results, but you can get a lot of really cool results too. It depends on what you want to do. So there are certain sounds, like if I wanted to make crazy bass rip things, this might be a cool source to get a starting tone, but as far as further processing, I'd way rather do that in post effects and use more traditional filter and distort and, compress, filter, distort, compress chains on top of each other. Stacks, that's the word I'm looking for. FX stacks, then going through Iris 2, but it offers ways of getting source content that you wouldn't typically get any other way, and ways of introducing flux, which I cover in the mixing series, but I use it constantly in sound design. It just means continuous change. One of the hardest things is to get really organic change in your sound. And anything that's sample-based synthesis can do that. So you see we dropped in a sample and I'm able to say, hey, play those sounds. But hey, what if I want to play the inverse of those sounds? Well, I can do that too. Whoops, that's the wrong one. And so I just said, hey, play everything that you weren't playing before. And so that's what that would sound like. If I flip it again. So very interesting sorts of ideas here, very powerful. We can flip things in all sorts of interesting ways. There are a number of features I wish could be added. I'll probably mention them as I go because they kind of just come up and you think, oh, why isn't that a thing yet? Like, for example, it would be cool to be able to automate loop points and say, hey, start playback here. And then maybe you could have a monophonic mode where you play here and then you can tell the playhead to jump around like a sampler. You'd be able to say, play this slice and then this slice and then this slice. That would be really cool with the spectral filtering. So you could come up with that. And then it'd be cool to be able to morph between spectral filters. There's a whole bunch of features I was thinking about. I was like, man, this has so much potential. Just if they put in all these things that I'm thinking of right now, this thing would be a freaking monster. I don't know why they don't exist though. I don't know the math behind what it takes to do this. So I don't know, maybe someday. But anyways, we're going to be learning about this, talking about some of the applications. You can see it's a pretty unusual process to be able to do this. And it's also very entertaining to look at. This GUI is very intensive on the CPU, so you may consider hiding it. As far as I know, part of the reasons it's so intensive, we'll cover this right now, because I know it's going to come up, is they have all this real-time stuff going on. So you can do like real-time automation. They have all these effects you can turn on. Their filters are very fancy and sound amazing, but they're very processor intensive. So this is a plug you may consider writing out your stuff and then rendering it to audio and then just saving it in the background if you want to use it again later. But it is just an intense plugin because they have so many extra options on. So it'd be really nice to be able to turn some of them off. Like for example, they have all this, you can like, it'd be cool to have a downgraded version of the GUI that just takes up less resources, be able to turn off parts like the real-time modulation, stuff like that. But we're going to be going over what this thing is, how it works. I expect you to know just a little bit, and that is, you just saw what pretty much was the coolest features, the reason why you would grab this plugin, because then you could drop in something that you want to filter in a very specific way over time, and you could totally do that. So you might drop in entire audio stems and just go at it, shaving it back and forth, getting it to sound just the way you want, and then render that out. So there's a lot of potential here. If you have any questions, let me know. Subscribe and have a blessed day.